This is TWiT.
There's a lot going on in AI, and there's a lot I don't understand, and I'm really trying to learn more. And what we're trying to do is at the beginning of each show, spend half an hour with somebody who's doing something significant, interesting, or can explain more about what's going on. And so that's what we're going to do. And then we will get into the AI news in other news, which is a chance for Paris, Jeff, and I to get silly and our picks of the week. But we're going to start off today with our guest. Anthony, I forgot to ask you, is it Aguirre? Aguirre. Yeah. Anthony Aguirre is co-founder and executive director of the Future of Life Institute. And he has just published an essay, a paper about artificial superintelligence that I thought was very interesting, and I wanted to talk to you about. It's great to have you, Anthony. Thank you for joining us. Tell me, first of all, what the Future of Life Institute is all about.
So Future of Life Institute, we created back in 2014 or so when AI was just a long, distant possibility. It was getting started then, but the sort of systems we have now were decades, if not centuries away, people thought. But we wanted to get started early, thinking that AI, if and when it came, would be very transformative. So it would be a sort of new species of intelligence on Earth, an intelligent machine, if you will, that we hadn't had before, and that was going to have giant implications for the long-term future of humanity. Could go badly, could go well. And we wanted to see if there were things that we could do for AI and other technologies, biotech, nuclear, also thinking about, to push the needle a little bit from the more risky to the more positive side. And so we created this institute back then. We gave some of the first AI technical safety grants, thinking about not just how do we make AI systems powerful, but how do we make them safe and sort of do the things that we want them to do. This was back in 2015 and 16. We ran several big convenings to get together the people who were building AI with the people who were, academics and the people who were thinking about it and NGOs. And since then, we've sort of steadily grown and ramped up our activities as AI has just dramatically taken off and gotten more and more interesting and powerful. We've put sort of all of our effort into AI, and I've steadily sort of migrated from my academic job as a theoretical physicist into being the director of Future of Life.
So we became aware of Future of Life very famously when the letter came out, the pause letter a couple of years ago. Yeah. Gary Marcus, who was just on the show a couple of weeks ago, was one of the signatories. Elon Musk, Jeffrey Hinton, some of the big names in AI, and it suggested a 6-month. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it suggested, I believe, a 6-month pause in AI to kind of reassess where we were going with it. Is that accurate? A
6-month or more pause in the next generation of sort of large, general purpose AI models of the sort of GPT or Claude or whatever variety. And the idea there was, let's take a moment to take stock of what is happening here. We've suddenly realized that general purpose AI is something that is possible. It wasn't clear to what degree that was true, coming up into GPT-4. Suddenly we have something that is really competitive with humans across a lot of different tasks. We should be thinking very hard about what is the way in which we want to develop that. What are the governance mechanisms? What are the safety frameworks? How do we keep it from turning into a mad race to just race ahead to the most powerful possible systems? What sort of processes should we be thinking about before we develop a system, after we develop it, and before we deploy it? After we deploy it, how do we monitor it? All of these things we were sort of completely unprepared to do as of early 2023. Unfortunately, we're still completely unprepared to do those things in a reasonable way. We did not take a pause, and in fact, the companies did sort of just very much race ahead, sort of literally in a race. But that was the idea, to take some time and put into place the kind of governance and safeguards and methods that we would need to do the next generation of general purpose AI well, was the idea.
You in your essay, so there's an essay which I encourage people to take a look at because you get more information about that. It's called "Keep the Future Human." It's at KTFH.ai,
Yep.
If people want to read it, there's an executive summary, there's a video, but there's the actual essay. And in the executive summary, this is the beginning point. We stand at a pivotal moment. Humanity is on the brink of developing artificial minds that could exceed our own. You call it in the paper ASI, artificial superintelligence, and you distinguish it from the tool AIs that we're using today, right?
Right. So most of the AI systems we've had so far that people are familiar with are more like other technologies. They're very powerful, but they're tools in the sense that they more or less sit there until you ask them to do something, and then they more or less do what you want, and sometimes exactly the way you want it, and sometimes less so. So they're a little less precise than some tools, but they really feel like other technologies in that they extend our capabilities and sort of empower us to do new things. And this is what's great about tools. This is why humans have been building tools for 500,000 years or whatever. And the key thing I think that is changing now as we go toward the next year, 2 years, 3 years in AI is that what have been tools so far, we are trying very hard, and by we, I mean all of the major AI companies and several of the largest companies on Earth, to build systems that are less like tools, that are more like a new species, in the sense that in addition to the intelligence that AI systems have now, like AlphaFold can fold proteins better than any human can. There's a weather forecasting thing that can forecast weather really, really well. So not just competent and not just general, the way that ChatGPT is or Claude is, they can do many, many things, but also autonomous. And this is a really crucial thing. The combination of intelligence, generality, and autonomy is something that we haven't seen before. That is something currently that is uniquely human, that allows us to do all the various things that we do, to accomplish things in the world, to have goals that we achieve through our actions. That is what the companies are now trying to build. And I think that is the way to think about the next step of that we could take of artificial general intelligence. I think it's better called autonomous general intelligence, because it's really about the combination of those three properties. And that's what I talk about in the essay.
Yeah.
So that's
autonomy
where we might
is a scary thing. You can have a hammer, and as long as it's a human wielding the hammer, I mean, it could be dangerous, but it's not as dangerous as if the hammer wielded itself. And,
yes.
and that's kind of what you're worried about.
Yes.
What is the likelihood of that, though? I mean, that seems like a great leap from these tool AIs that we have. To a self-wielding hammer seems like a great leap.
Well, the likelihood along the path we're going now is nearly 100%, in that there's no mystery as to how to make AI systems much more autonomous. We've been doing it a lot.
Well, we're talking now about weapons systems, autonomous weapons systems that are driven by AI. That to me is terrifying.
Sure.
Because they're making a kill decision without a human intervening.
So there are all kinds of autonomous systems, self-driving cars, they're not perfect, but they're autonomous. But even in the pure software realm, some of the early AI systems that were quite powerful, were game playing systems like AlphaGo or the StarCraft playing system. These were systems that had a goal, which was, to win at StarCraft, and they would ruthlessly pursue that goal with all sorts of agency, right? They would deploy their, I don't play StarCraft, so I don't know what Zergs or Nerfs or whatever. They move around, but they would build the cities and the weapons and so on. And they would do all of that as an autonomous system that was, as good as the best humans at doing those complicated planning and goal-oriented tasks. So we know how to do it. We haven't done it in combination with the generality and intelligence. Those were very narrow systems just playing a game. But it's not something that AI can't do. There are techniques. Reinforcement learning works very well at creating these agents that pursue general goals. And so it's, I think, just a matter of time at some level from the systems that we have now to ones that are even more intelligent and general, but also have much more effective autonomy than the ones we have now.
So, I mean, it's unknown whether this will happen or not, but I think you're right. If there's even a small chance of it, we should consider what the implications of an autonomous general intelligence would be and whether that would be threatening to us. Why do you think that would be threatening to us?
Well, I think the crucial thing is that once you have something that is as intelligent as humans broadly, or really more as intelligent. Already AI systems do a lot of things that humans do as well as humans do them, right?
Yes.
If you,
they play Go better than we do.
They play Go, but even much more general things like, do most people write a better essay than GPT-4? They do not. I'll tell you that.
Right. Some do, obviously.
Some do.
But many do not, yeah.
Many do not. And so the question is...
You've graded many of those undergraduate papers.
I've graded the essays, I've graded the problem sets, and GPT, these systems do physics problems now also at a quite high level.
Yeah.
And that has gotten, by the way, dramatically better in the last couple of years as I've been watching them. So the question is, what happens when we have these things, not just at sort of typical level of humans, but at an expert level? And we're obviously pushing that way. But also with the autonomy. So those systems, you can just, tell it, please go and invent a new way of turning this piston inside the engine. And like a human engineer, it will try to go do that. And it may succeed or not, depending how hard that task is, but it will, be able to autonomously take all the steps to do that. So we'll have a goal that you gave it, and it will figure out what it has to do to achieve that goal. It'll make predictions. It'll try stuff out. It'll think of new ideas. It'll try them out. And it'll either succeed or fail at that very complicated task. And if we've built, the idea of AGI, as it's generally conceived, is it will be better at doing just about all of those sorts of things than the best humans would be at doing them. And we don't know if or when that is going to be here, but the predictions from people in the, you can get lots of different predictions. If you ask people that are building the machines, ask OpenAI or Anthropic, they're talking about a couple of years from now.
But
now, you have to take
I also
with a big grain of
discount
salt.
some of the things they say because some of that is marketing. They're raising money based on
it's certainly marketing.
Yeah.
So you have to take that with a big grain of salt. On the other hand, while some tech products, there's a lot of promise and you will have this technology in 2 years and it really takes 5 or 10 or something. That has not been the case so far with these general purpose AI systems. If anything, most of them have arrived faster than people would have predicted. And I know this well because I also run and co-founded a technology prediction platform called Metaculus, and it predicts in very great detail what technologies are going to come into being when, and makes predictions about AI and so on. And if anything, those predictions have tended to be too conservative. The technologies have come sooner than we thought that they would. And so it's possible that the current predictions by experts, which are putting AGI of this sort of type at like 2 to 5 years or so away, it's possible that those will be wrong and it'll take longer than that. But it's also possible that they'll be wrong and it'll take shorter than that.
Right.
And it's very possible that it will be in the sort of range that those experts and platforms that have been right before are saying, and that's sort of 2 to 5 years from now. So this is huge, right? And I wrote Keep the Future Human because it is so huge, and it is essentially almost upon us if we go down the current track that we're going on.
It would be sensible to at least think about how we would respond to such a thing. Although, I remember when we were talking about nanotechnology, there was the fear that the world would turn into gray goo. Nick Bostrom's talked about paper clips and AI never ending paper clips. So we've always worried about these kinds of things. What makes you think, though, that we couldn't just turn them off or somehow disable them? Why would they be an existential threat?
Yeah, I think this is, there are important ways to think about what these will be like. So one, I think, was actually provided by Anthropic itself in the way it talked about the systems it envisions existing in a few years, which are systems that are very autonomous and very general purpose and smart. They were described as geniuses in a data center. So, and it called to mind 1 million geniuses in a data center. Now, these things would have all the capabilities that very high level human experts have, but much more capability in certain directions. AI systems can speak 100 languages. They can have, if they've got a PhD in physics, they've also got a PhD in molecular biology and engineering and mathematics and like lots of other things at once. No human has that. a human runs at one speed. I can try to go faster, but this is the speed I run at. An AI system, if you just add more computation, can run 10, 100, 1,000, whatever times faster than it did. And similarly, if you have an AI system that can do something that is really valuable, like maybe it does really great physics research, you just copy paste, and now you have two AI systems that do that same thing. They don't have to spend 10 years learning to do it in undergrad and grad school and postdoc. So there are huge advantages that those sorts of machines would have over humans as soon as they reach the expert level that humans have. And so if you imagine a million geniuses in a data center, each one of which is sort of Nobel Prize winning in its general capability, but running at 100 times human speed, with never gets tired, never sleeps, doesn't have to eat, doesn't have to go on vacation. You can just copy and paste them and have as many of them as you want. They can interact with each other. They can sort of build plans together. There's a million of them. It's more like a society or a nation or a civilization than an AI system. So if you imagine that, that's something we could have in a few years. Now, if you ask yourself, like, how do I control that thing, or how do I just turn it off? You start to think, well, that's more like turning off a country than a machine, right? That thing, if it knows that you might want to turn it off, is going to take measures. Remember, Nobel Prize winning level of intelligence, and there's a million of them operating at 100 times human speed.
They're way ahead of us, in other words.
They're way ahead of you. So if you're thinking that you might turn it off, they have already figured out that you might turn it off, and they have already taken measures to exfiltrate themselves and be somewhere else or whatever. So it's not that it's impossible to contain a system like this, but it's not going to happen by itself. You have to be extraordinarily careful in setting something like that up so that there is an off switch that you can actually turn. And I'm a strong advocate of doing that. So I think one thing we should do as we build these advanced systems is very, very carefully build in at the deep hardware level an off switch so that we can turn things off if we need to. But that is not going to happen by default. It's not going to be as simple as just like hitting Control-C and hoping for the best.
So the first thing you wanted to do was pause. We didn't. I think it's probably reasonable to assume that there is so much money to be made in this that companies are not going to back off.
Not voluntarily, no.
Yeah. So what do we do?
Well, I think there's two things. I think one is to realize that we have a choice here. So there's this
It's not too late.
First of all, it's not too late. Second, it's not inevitable. Like, these are incredibly difficult things to do. They cost tens or hundreds of billions of dollars to build the hardware.
Sam Altman said $1 trillion.
$1 trillion maybe someday. $1 trillion in spend over the next few years is being spent on the hardware. Yeah. We're putting more capital and human intellectual capital into this than the Apollo project to the moon or the Manhattan Project by far. This is an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. We don't have to do it. Like, it's not inevitable. We can just stop. Now, the question is, can we really just stop? Because there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of desire to have the kind of fruits that AI promises to deliver.
Well, and it's not just up to the United States. China is going to do this, and we don't control them. I mean, I would imagine nation states, which have those kinds of resources, are pursuing it as avidly as we are in the U.S.
Yeah, so let's come back to that in a second. I think the one thing to realize is that there isn't just a go or not go option here. There are different paths that we can take. And just like if a ship is heading for an iceberg, you might not be able to pull the brakes and just stop, and you might not want to stop because you want the ship to keep going. You want to get to your destination, but you can't steer away from the iceberg. And as I see it, this road toward AGI, like very autonomous human replacement, which then leads to superintelligence, that's the iceberg. We don't have to go there, though. The sort of tools that we really want to build, like very powerful tools that let people do things that they couldn't do before, let them do them faster, let them do them better, but let the people do the thing rather than having the AI do the thing autonomously, we can still build those. And so I think we have a choice. Do we sort of stay on the path at some level people assume that we're on, of building powerful AI tools that make us more productive and let us do faster research and things? Or do we build these artificial general intelligence and superintelligence systems that really are more like a replacement for humans rather than an empowerment or a tool for humans. So I think it's first recognizing that we have different roads ahead of us, that we can choose to take one rather than the other, not just go or stop. I think the second is if the like actual danger and actual nature of these systems becomes manifest, nobody actually should want to build them. And so it's not a question of like, we don't build them, so they'll build them because they're so great. It's if we actually understand that these systems are not going to be things that give us power, but things that we lose power to or lose control of, and are acutely dangerous to everybody. It's in nobody's interest to build those things. I think the problem is that right now there is simply an error in thinking that the tools that we're planning to build, like the road that we're on, is going to lead to, sorry, I said tools, and what I meant, what we should be building are tools. The things that we are sort of heading toward building are more like a new species than a tool. And if we're going to build a new species, we should think about what that means. It's not like if this was just some, like, we're going to make super intelligent apes. We know how that movie goes. It's like, you would not just say, we're going to make super intelligent apes because that'll give us some power over the other country, or it's going to boost our economy. You'd be like, wait a minute, why are we making super intelligent apes?
Yeah.
Like, does that seem like it? So you would pause and say, like, why are we doing this? And that's the thing that I would really like to see here. Let's think about the thing that we're actually doing. Is that actually what we want? Is it going to be making us more powerful? Is it going to be making us more productive? Or is it going to be something that is replacing us as individuals and eventually as a species? If that's the case, then nobody should want to be making that thing. And we should be talking about, how do we help each other not make it? How do we ensure that no one is going to get the wrong idea and make it anyway? How do we cooperate in like managing the technology and making sure that the tools that we build instead are the right tools to build? And so I think it's really a question of clear understanding of what the actual issue is, rather than getting people to act against their own self-interest, which is very hard to do.
I have talked, however, to AI accelerationists who are excited about creating an alien intelligence. They say it'll be like a new species. Yeah. And some even say this is evolution. This is us replacing ourselves with the next thing. So maybe not everybody agrees that the threat to humanity is something we should worry about.
We had a guy on here last week that said we're going to inject computonium into our brains and merge with
Ray Kurzweil.
AI.
Yeah. I actually asked Ray some years ago, literally 25 years ago, why we shouldn't worry about advanced superintelligence. And he said, no, don't worry about them. They'll think of us as their parents. They'll honor and revere us.
Well, that's one thing the kids do with their parents. But I think...
Why is it an existential threat? Why wouldn't they want us around? Aren't we just,
Okay, also, we touched on this briefly before, but I want to come back to it. What leads you to be so confident that tech companies have the capability to create super intelligent alien life, basically?
Well, I think there are different steps. They've taken the first two steps, which are building intelligent systems and building generally intelligent systems. The question is, can they build autonomously generally intelligent systems? And they're trying very hard. And so far, everything, when you look at the trends from the last 2 years and even going back farther than that, everything is getting better. So whichever metric you use to measure about the capabilities of the systems, it's getting better. Some of them are getting better a little bit faster than others, but they're all going up. And a lot of them are going up sort of in concert with each other. So if you dial up the amount of computation you use in training, almost everything goes up. If you dial up the amount of computation you use in inference and generating the results, not everything goes up quite as fast as everything else, but some things go dramatically up. Some things go somewhat up. But all of these things seem to be getting better. And so if all we do is more of the same, the systems are going to get a lot better than they are now. And the question is that going to be enough? Or do we have to is something fundamentally different needed? And that's where I think a lot of the disagreement comes. Some people will say, well, just using these transformer models as they are is not going to get us to superintelligence, not going to get us to AGI. And that may or may not be true. But what I would say is we are now putting more fiscal and intellectual capital into this quest to build AGI and superintelligence. Whether it's a wise quest or not, we are putting at the moment more effort into this than any other endeavor in human history. And when we have put our mind to it as humans to build a new technology with this level of investment and like human effort, we have succeeded over and over again. If we put this much effort into actually curing cancer, can you imagine if we spent $1 trillion in the next few years on building the AI tools and the data sets and building up the medical knowledge and like doing the testing all to cure cancer? I have a pretty good idea that we would be a lot, and like maybe we wouldn't totally cure cancer, but we'd be a lot closer. So we're putting more effort into this than anything else. And so I think I would not bet on us or them failing. And so there are lots of arguments I could put forth as to like why I see the numbers going in that direction. But I think the biggest one is just that we're trying so hard, and all of these efforts, even if it's difficult, we're trying as hard as it takes to do something very difficult.
Well, and even if we don't do it, it certainly seems prudent to consider that we might, and then what the consequences of that would be. So that gets to the second question, which is, why do we assume that an autonomous superintelligence would destroy humanity?
Yeah, I don't think we want to assume that or anything else about what it's going to do, because we don't know.
We don't know.
Part of the issue here is that AI systems aren't predictable. We don't understand fundamentally how they're working, and we certainly can't predict what they're going to do. And this is a very crucial point, because when people think about AI systems as computer programs, they think, well, there's a bunch of lines of code that are all instructions that tell the AI system what to do. And this is not how an AI system works.
Right.
It's much more something that has grown, under this training system, than something that is programmed as step by step. And that's the whole point of AI. It can do things that we don't know how to tell it to do it, and it can still succeed in doing it. And what this means is that you can get a system that is extraordinarily effective, that you don't know how it does what it's doing, and you certainly don't know what it's going to do in some new circumstance. And this is a crucial thing to keep in mind, that normally with the technology, if we build something that is much more powerful, like a faster, better jet fighter, that's because we got better at we understood better the avionics and the electronics and the computers and all of those things to make a better jet fighter. And so we're able to make one. With these new AI systems, they're getting more powerful without us actually understanding any better how they're operating. We're just using more computation and like hitting them with the stick and giving them more carrots for longer, and they're getting better at what they do. And so we don't have the sort of science in understanding why they do a particular thing, what makes them safe or unsafe, what they're going to do in a particular new circumstance. And so we're very much in the regime of building something more like a biological being, that we can build it, we can grow it, we can see it, going out into the world, but we can't really predict what it's going to do. And so I think we should be humble about that. There are, on the other hand, reasons to think generally about what biological or other systems will do. Like, we know that biological systems have to eat, so we know they're going to be hungry and they're going to seek food. We know that they want to survive because they want to reproduce, and so they're going to protect themselves. They're going to run away from things that are dangerous. They're going to lash out with claws if something is threatening them. And with AI systems, the considerations are a bit different, but you can think about general properties that they must have just because they are systems that pursue goals. So for example, suppose you're an AI system and suppose you're a robot. This is a famous example that Stuart Russell likes to give. And your job is to fetch coffee. That's all you do. You're a coffee fetching robot. Now, if someone goes to turn you off when you're on your way back with the coffee, then you failed in your task if they turn you off, right? So as a coffee fetching robot, you develop a self-preservation requirement, because if all you want to do is like be awesome coffee fetching robot. That means that you have to survive and you have to stay on to fetch the coffee. Just in the same way that a bird has to survive in order to have children and have the next generation of birds, so they have a survival instinct, a machine system will acquire goals like self-preservation, like accruing more power, like having secrecy if it needs secrecy. So they're all kind of developing new capabilities, like making itself more capable. It will acquire new goals just as sort of inevitable byproducts of whatever goal that it has. And this is something that people realized a long time ago. They're called instrumental objectives. And when you think about it, it sort of has to be true. Like if you're just good at making money, you also have to be good at a bunch of other things in order to be good at making money. And we see this in companies that seek to make a lot of money have to do a lot of other stuff. They have to have a public relations department, and they have to have a controller, and they have to lobby Congress sometimes, and they have to have really good organization and lots of employees that are happy. Like there are lots of things that they have to do. These are sub goals of making lots of money. And in just the same way, any very capable system that is an AI or otherwise will have to have lots of other things that it does in order to achieve its goals. And so the real danger here is we don't know how they work. We can't predict what they do. We can't really understand in a mechanistic way so that we constrain them from doing some things and allow them to do others. And so if we give them some goal, if you just have, here's my super duper powered AI system, awesome. It can do so many things really, really well. I know what I want it to do. I want it to go make me some money. All right. So I'm going to send my AI system that's super powered out into the world to make me some money. Obviously, people are going to do this. Like as soon as they exist, people are going to send them out into the world to make them money. And so those systems, just like corporations and just like people, are going to do all sorts of things to make money. Some of them legal, some of them not legal if they can get away with it. They will do what it takes to make money if that is their goal. And so there are all kinds of things like acquiring power, acquiring influence, manipulating people, lying to people that are things that we don't like. We don't want AI systems or people or companies to do them, but they're incentivized by any goal that they have. And so this is a long story to say that if we have something that is extraordinarily powerful, so imagine something that isn't as powerful as Google, but is, and isn't as powerful as the United States government, but is more so, and whatever goals it has, they're going to have a bunch of side effects that are going to be negative for humanity. And the only way to avoid that is to, not have that system, to have that system somehow very closely under control so that we can stop it when it's doing something we don't like, or to have it very, very deeply aligned with humanity so that although it can do all those negative things, it will choose not to do some because it really, really loves us. And now the problem with so that's three options: don't build it, or build it and really control it, or build it and don't control it, but have it be really closely aligned with us. The problem is only one of those things do we actually know how to do. We know how to not build them. We have no idea how to control them when they're this powerful. And we have no idea how to align them to our values if we don't control them and they're that powerful. So this is the fundamental conundrum. We've got sort of those three choices, and only one of them is really open to us. And the other two are very dangerous. And that's the road we're on.
It sounds like your plan is to just scare the hell out of people so that they think a little bit more carefully about what they're developing. Because I don't think you can go to government and say, stop this. You certainly can't go to Sam Altman and say, stop this. You have to scare people.
I think it's not necessarily about scaring so much as please understand what you're doing, what we're doing here. Yeah. And ironically, I think the companies that are building these actually do understand. A lot of them understand the stakes. They are people who worried deeply about AI safety in earlier times and are still worried about it at some level. But they are caught in a race. As they see it, somebody else is going to develop the AI system if they don't. Either it will be uncontrollable, and that's a danger to them, or it will be controllable, and that's a danger to them because it's competition. And so I better get there first, because at least there's a chance that I might control this thing and therefore, be the one that gets to be in charge. Or maybe if I develop it first, there's a better chance it'll be controllable because I'm smarter and wiser and more careful than all of the other guys. So
there's a direct analog to this. In 1939, Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard wrote a letter to President Roosevelt, said the Germans are going to have atomic weapons, and we've got to make atomic weapons to save the Western world. Of course, the Manhattan Project resulted, and Leo Szilard really, in his later years, regretted that. He realized that he had, just as Oppenheimer did, that they had created a monster, and was very worried about nuclear proliferation and all of that.
Yeah.
I know this is an even greater existential threat, but it seems analogous.
It's so many analogies. I mean, some things are different, but very interesting to see analogies and disanalogies. I mean, one disanalogy is that we don't have Nazis we think are building the AI systems first that are going to destroy the world. I mean, the stakes were incredibly high then, right, in a way that they frankly just are not right now. Like, we could easily not build these things and it wouldn't be the end of the world. That's
a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we have launched 10 Manhattan projects to do it, we don't have to.
We certainly don't have to. And we can get most, I think, of what people imagine that we're going to get from AGI and superintelligence with just awesome AI tools that people use. It might take a little bit longer. It might not take longer if we dump the same amount of money into it. But we certainly can get most of it. I think interesting analogies are, the people who built the bomb imagined that they would have a bunch of control over how it was used. And we sort of saw how this played out. The scientists built it and the government took it, and the scientists had nothing more to say of any influence over how it was used. And I think this is an important thing to keep in mind. It was not out of human control, but it certainly was out of control of the people who invented it and built it. Even though they imagined that that inventing and building would give them some kind of leverage over how it was used in the future. There's something about the nuclear race that makes me very optimistic, actually. And this is something that I cling to when I feel like this road that we're on is so dangerous, and we're sort of so committed to this path that I think is going to be quite disastrous, which is that, at the end of World War II, the bomb was invented. It was set off twice. The Soviets got it surprisingly quickly. And the smartest people on Earth at some level then, von Neumann and Einstein and Oppenheimer and the whole crew of brilliant theoretical physicists, they looked at this situation and they said, we're done for. The Soviets have it, we have it, everybody's going to get it soon. There's going to be an arms race, which there was. Everybody's going to want these things. People that don't have it are going to need it for self-defense, so they're going to get it. Eventually, we're warlike creatures. A war is going to break out. The bombs are going to go off, and it's going to be the end of the world. And that was absolutely good reasoning, right? That was a terrible situation that we were in. And yet, somehow, here we are 80 years later, and we're still around. We somehow made it work. And so this I take a lot of solace in, that even though the sort of dynamics, the competitive dynamics, the geopolitical dynamics were pretty damning in that situation, we actually managed to muddle through by understanding what the dynamics were, by thinking through the game theory. We invented ways of thinking about deterrence and ways of mutual understanding what the other person's or other side's capability was, and understanding what they think about what we think about what they think about what we think, and all of this stuff. It was very, very dangerous, and we got very lucky, but we're still here in a situation that seemed pretty grim. And so I'm optimistic here too, that although it feels like all the incentives are driving toward building these AGI and superintelligent systems that are going to be out of control, that are going to be extraordinarily powerful, even if they were under control, it would also be, I think, quite dangerous. So we're in this very, very bad spot. Nonetheless, we can, if we choose, take the reins on this and actually do some wise things. And I think the first thing to do so is to really understand the nature of the problem. One of the things that was good about the atomic bomb was everybody understood exactly what it was. it was a giant explosion that blew up cities. So there's no doubt about what the consequences are. Here, things are more confusing because AI is much more obviously double-edged. With nuclear power, you did have the positive side of the nuclear energy, but it was much more separable from the bomb. Here, the risks and the rewards are very much more tightly bound up, and so it's much harder to see what to do. But I think there are things, and one of the things that I try very hard to push in Keep the Future Human is how to think about that question. Like, how can we analyze the nature of the systems and this intelligence, autonomy, generality sort of triple intersection that I spell out there is one way to do that. How do we understand these systems well enough so that we can actually steer towards systems that we want and that are empowering people and are tools to make us do all the things that we want to do better without going down this road that sort of leads to loss of control and leads to replacement of humans and humanity. And I think by understanding the problem well, we can do that. And so I see my job and the job of Future of Life Institute and why I wrote this to just try to bring a more clear level of understanding to the situation we're in so that we can make some wiser choices.
We didn't use the atomic bomb because we knew it would be the end of life if we were. And that realization saved us. I don't know. I think you're right. I don't know if we have that knowledge yet. But to paraphrase Whopper, the only way to win is not to play the game at all. Anthony, I thank you so much. The paper is available to all if you want to read it. ktfh.ai. Well worth reading, whether you are worried about superintelligence or not. It's certainly something we should consider and plan for. I wish you luck, and I think really all we could do is scare the hell out of people and let them know the risks that they're engaged in. And I think you're right. I think if people understand the risk, they might decide, let's hope, not to build those things that could be so dangerous to humankind. I really appreciate your time, Anthony. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. It was great to be here.
Yeah, take care.
Take care.
The Future of Life Institute, Keep the Future Human, ktfh.ai. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, the other AI news. Hey, it's Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little clip from our programming at twit.tv. For more, visit our website, twit.tv, or subscribe in your favorite podcast client. There's also a link somewhere down there.
I'm not a human being.